Thank you. Give her my best.
You got it. Michelle Malkin, James gives you his best. How are you?
Well, I'll have to tweeze something about his great Twitter account as well.
Make it twitchy. Hey,
That's right.
How about this? We've been talking this morning about how this guy, Floyd Corkins, goes into the Family Research Council in downtown Washington, D.C. There he is in a picture that Fox News has obtained. Apparently, you know, he shot the guard who is being referred to as a hero. And the FBI is trying to figure out whether or not to charge him with attempting a terrorist act. But before we find out exactly what's going on, Huffington Post has already referred to the Family Research Council, a traditional family values organization, as a hate group.
Yeah, it was a horrifying day at the Family Research Council and for all of us who have friends and acquaintances who work there. And it was a huge relief to know that nobody died in that attack and that we had this hero, Leo Johnson. And I think it was compounded, all of the concern and anxiety, by this wave of hatred that greeted the news of the event yesterday. But it's not unexpected. Not only did the Huffington Post refer to the Family Research Council as a hate group after the fact. But of course, we had this left-wing group, the Human Rights Council, which has been on the case of many traditional values, family values groups for years now, referred to FRC as a hate group just 18 hours before the event. And all of that is stoked by another left-wing group, the Southern Poverty Law Center, which classified FRC as a hate group. Why? Why? Have they done anything like the new Black Panther Party has in calling for violence and murder and armed revolution? No. The simple fact is their crime is that they stand for social conservative values, they defend traditional marriage, and they believe in the sanctity of life. And I agree with many of these groups, like the National Organization for Marriage, that that kind of rhetoric has to stop. I mean, we always hear from left-wing groups after random acts of violence that everybody needs to have more introspection about their words and their rhetoric, but they never do that after an attack like the one that happened yesterday, and maybe they should.
Right.
No kidding.
Let's talk a little bit about Michelle Obama, the First Lady, out on the campaign trail, and she was talking about this cancer ad, the controversial one, or was she? Do you believe that she was insinuating back to that ad when she said that if you elect Mitt Romney, women will die from cancer?
Well, it's an interesting parallel. It's an interesting echo of the ad's theme, of course, which is that somehow if Republicans are elected to the White House, that all of these people are going to die, die, die. But it has been an Uber theme since before Obamacare was shoved down our throats, that somehow if we didn't have these massive interventions, all of these deaths, which happen every day, would and that Republicans would be blamed for them. I think it's a good way to remind people of just how many fables this administration has spun, going back to, of course, Obama's own mother and the invocation of her cancer experience as somehow an urgent example of why we need Obamacare. And of course, that turned out to be a fable as well. Remember that Barack Obama basically said that his mother was fighting with insurance companies while she was on her deathbed. And it turned out, according to a New York Times reporter, Jenny Scott, that in fact, she had her insurance, they reimbursed her for all her costs, and the dispute that he was hyping was completely separate from the one that he made up as some sort of poster example for Obamacare.
Were you surprised that when the president heard the remarks mentioned in Virginia, even though the vice president thought he was in North Carolina, insinuating the chains comments?
Put you all back in chains.
Put us all back in chains comments. Were you surprised the president quickly defended the vice president when other Democrats have not been?
Not surprised at all. They've stood by the gafftastic bozo, the vice president, from day one, of course. But I think just more fundamentally, it shows the basic disingenuousness of Barack Obama, who, of course, after the Tucson shooting, that horrible massacre, called on the rest of the country to engage in more civil rhetoric, to use words that heal rather than words that wound. and he's AWOL on this basic example of sneering incivility and use of the race card by Joe Biden.
All right. Michelle Malkin, our twitchy tweezer, 2 words, one she invented, the other by James Rosen. Thank you very much for joining us today from Colorado.
You bet. Take care.
All right.